All right, so we're going to move on to prepping for the final exam, your last class that you have next week. I'm sure you're all very excited about that, about being done, not about taking the exam. All right, so I shared with you, oops, not that one. Those names I changed. I shared with you a Word document that is the Professor Wallis's version of the final exam study guide. And I went back through the exam again today because I had to edit some of the questions. There were some errors and some of them were just horrible questions. So I was trying to fix it a little bit. And it reminded me of some things that I did not have on the list in the document that I sent you. So what I recommend you do is pull up, actually I can share this in the chat too right now real quick. This version. Oh wait, I got to get rid of the others before I can share it. These are questions that I took off, but I gotta save it different. So I was asked by the college to share all of the edits that I recommend for the questions, and I was like, oh, I just deleted a bunch of them from my document because once I fixed them, I deleted it. So now I've got to go back and do it again. But I'm going to save this part as a separate file because it has some of the changes that I made in it so that they're not all gone. Don't you love doing things more than once? It's fun. I was like, oh, I already spent like 2 hours going through the exam. And then I didn't save everything that I did on a different document. So, oh well. What can you do? Okay, so I think I have this in yours. Some of them I found where they belong, and so I moved them. But the definitions of genetic engineering and the examples with recombinant DNA, that might be in the, let's see, what chapter was it? Was it 14? That was, no, it's not that one. It was, oh, it was chapter 13. I don't have the titles of what they are, but I think it was genetic counseling was the name of the title. I believe that's what chapter those belong in, but I just left them at the top because I don't remember. But you need to know what it talks about as far as genetic engineering and what the examples are of the techniques that are done with genetic engineering. So basically, genetic engineering is any manipulation of genetic material combining 2 different organisms, genetic material together, or cloning genetic material into a vector is the word I'm looking for. So sometimes they will put viral genetic material into a bacteria or something like that. All of this is referred to as recombinant DNA or rDNA. The recombinant part means you're recombining 2 different sources of genetic material. So that's kind of that part. So I thought what I would do is I'm just going to go over, especially the ones that I have highlighted in here are ones that I added that are not in the copy of the study guide that I sent to you. Oh, I forgot. I just said I was going to share this to the chat and I got sidetracked and forgot. So here's the updated final exam study guide. There we go. Oh, where'd it go? Oh goodness, I do this every time. I can't send it while it's open. I have to close it first. And then I can send it. Goodness gracious. All right, let's try this again. Okay, so this version that I just added into the chat, just the highlighted part that I add on are parts of it, are terms that you need to know for the final exam that were not in the version that I shared in the announcement for your final exam study guide. Oh, now I got to open it back before I can go back to it. Okay, so I'm going to share it back again. So this is that version. So I thought what I would do is just work through some of these of showing you what you need to look up and add to the study guide about it. And then I want to kind of focus on the ones that I added to it. And then when we start to kind of get tired of listening to Dr. Julie talk about this, I was going to put you in breakout groups and assign each group different chapters for you to work on some of them and then share them back. Because I made another, like I did for the other ones, a week 11 class group study activity discussion board for you to post them to. And then if we have time, we'll go back and go over some of them. And if not, I can just add some notes to it so that you have all the information to help you study for the exam. So let's just start by, actually, you know what I want to do? I want to start at the end chapters because I feel like we didn't go over as much detail in these, and there's quite a few things that I've added to these. And then we can kind of work our way backwards for that. So chapter 30. So we haven't even gone over chapter 30 at all. There is not a ton of information in chapter 30 that's on the final exam, but there are some things that you need to know. So I'm going to just pull these up and just say, what do you need to know about this? Because here I just have the terms listed. You can go pull it up in the PowerPoint, but this will kind of give you an idea of what you need to pull out of the PowerPoint to study for the exam. So I'm just going to pull up the PowerPoint. Ken asked, did I say the exam is heavier on plants than animals? I did say that, I believe. However, there are some specifics on the animals that that we kind of just briefly touched on when I lectured on it last week. So really, honestly, everything that is listed, every term that is listed on this study guide is on the final exam somewhere. So if you just make sure you know what every single one of those terms means, that will at least help you. Yeah, I feel like there are more questions about plants, but the ones that are for the animals are very, very specific, and they're things that you have to memorize. Did you want to ask, Ken, did you raise your hand to ask something, or is that just?
Yeah, I just real quick while we're on plants and animals. My only concern was because in the homework assignments, there were like 20 diagrams that with like 15, 20 plus things to label. And that's the only thing that I was kind of worried about, because there's no way, we're going to memorize all of it. So I don't know if you're able to tell us, like, are there ones that we should pay more attention to? Do we even need to worry about those? I guess that's really what I was worried about.
There aren't any diagrams. There aren't any pictures that it says label this. So, but you'll see as we walk kind of through here, I'll kind of give you an idea of what you need to know. Give us specific questions and answers. Isn't that always what students want? I can't give you the specific questions and answers, but I can give you the information to answer them. All right, so for example, let's just start with chapter 30. So I don't even know what's up with this PowerPoint. It's like kind of random the way it is. But there are some questions about the different hierarchy of ranking or organization of organisms that is kind of repeated from chapter 1. So I'll mention that here also as well. But I think that's why this is here on the PowerPoint. I don't know why the PowerPoint. So it's kind of just has not very much stuff on there. But so for example, environmental science. So let's just say that we're going to search environmental science, and environmental should be sufficient to search it in here. So I'm just going to click in environmental. If we go to the PowerPoint and it comes to slide number 8, here it has what the definition of environmental science is here. So actually, I'm sharing the wrong thing. I am going to switch this to sharing the PowerPoint instead of sharing the Word document, because you have the Word document. What you need to see is what PowerPoint I'm pulling up. Okay, so I just Control F. I searched in the PDF of the PowerPoint for environmental. I just typed in. So this took us to the definition of environmental science, which for that one, that's all you need to know. Applies ecological principles to practical human concerns. I will mention, and I mentioned this before, but I don't know how well you guys listened to what I said or followed what I said, but go by the exact definition that's in here in the PowerPoint, in the PDF, because there are sometimes other answers that sound like common sense of what you think the definition is, but the correct answer is going to be what the actual book definition is, word for word. So if that helps you with that there, environmental science for your purposes for the final exam applies ecological principles to practical human concerns. I realize that's kind of vague, but that's the definition that you need to know for environmental science. So what I recommend is going back to the study guide and typing out, let me see if I can share my whole screen. I think I did this with you guys before, but I'm going to do it again because hopefully it's more effective. So what I would do is I would come back here and I would, I'm just going to tab it so it goes in there, type in environmental science, and I'm going to type in here the exact definition that I just read. So applies ecological principles to practical human concerns. For that one, that's it. You need to know that definition. That's what you need to know. Other ones, I can't remember if ecosystem is in this PowerPoint or not. Some of these terms really kind of overlap with different chapters. And I'm not sure exactly where they are, but okay, see, it is in this one. So this is in chapter 30 as well. So I've said add ecosystem. So this is one that was not in the version that I sent you. But this is also a definition that you need to know. So ecosystem is living organisms and their physical environment. So what that means is the living organisms and the non-living organisms. I'm going to add that in there because that's not in there, but that is a pivotal, give you a hint, that's a pivotal term that you need to know for this one. So ecosystem includes the living organisms and their non-living physical environment. So things like rocks and streams and things like that. And then like, for example, population growth. Let's go back to here. Let's do Control F. Let's look up population. Actually, that one's probably going to be in here a lot, so I might not want that one, but we'll start with it and see what happens. Next, okay. Yeah, it's in here a lot of times. Let's try growth instead. So I'm just giving you an example of like the terms that you use depending on what they are might be in the PowerPoint or in the book a bunch of times, or they might be in just one specific area. So you have to kind of try different terms to find them. I'm just saying that's going to save you time if you do that. You can obviously search through the whole PowerPoint and the whole book and read the whole thing and try to find these things. But for time's sake, for study purposes, it's going to be faster if you search for the one. Oh, this is actually a good one here. What is it? Did I put it on here? Oh yeah, I said I have on here. I knew this one was on here. Benefits of the Industrial Revolution is also on here. So for example, that's why I put that on there. You need to know exactly what it says in the PowerPoint. The Industrial Revolution brought an increase in production in food and jobs. So we go back to your study guide here. Make this one a separate bullet point. Brought an increase in food production and jobs. So is everybody finding this helpful? Because I don't want to just sit here and go through this. I mean, I'm literally showing you what you need to take from the information that I gave you in the study guide so that you can get these questions correct on the final exam. And I wanted to especially go through chapter 30 since we were supposed to cover that tonight and I wasn't going to cover the rest of it. So I'm going to finish going through 30 and then I'm going to go back to 19 because if you notice here, there's a lot from the animal one that I added. So while there are fewer questions for the animal part, like I said, they're extremely detailed. And so I'm going to tell you what you need to know about those. Because a lot of these, like these that I'm going through now, are just definitions that you need to know, which is relatively simple. But some of the other ones, you actually need to memorize a larger group of material in order to be able to answer the question. Okay, so back to, let's see. What was the other one? Oh, population growth is what I was looking at. So let's see here. There's one that says, like you need to understand these terms related to population growth. So for example, growth rate of a population is one of the terms here. Oops. So for growth rate of population, you need to know, let me put this back on top here. That growth rate of a population is the difference between the number of people born and the number of people who die each year. That is the growth rate of the population. That's how many more individuals are there here now than there were then, is what that is. So growth rate of the population is difference between number of people born and number who die each year. The good news for you is the wording on the exams is the exact same wording that's on the book and on the PowerPoints. So it's not like it changes a bunch. I mean, there may be slight changes in it, but it's pretty much word for word. So for example, doubling time, which should be here. Let's see. Here it is right here. Doubling time. Length of time it takes for a population to double in size. Simple as that. That's the definition that you need to know for doubling time. So you would go back on here. Length of time for population to double in size. I'm abbreviating it a little bit. I recommend not abbreviating it so that you can make sure that you have the whole thing. Length of time for the population to double in size. Sounds simple, right? But when you look at the other options, you might get confused. So doubling time of a population is just the amount of time that it takes for every individual in that population to be doubled. So basically times 2, the whole entire population. And I think I put population growth on there just because it refers to those, but I don't think there's like a separate one for that. So another section in this that's on there is the survivorship curves. Whoops, I didn't mean to zoom into that. So for those survivorship curves, what you need to know is these definitions of the different types. I think I had originally had on here types Roman numeral 1 through Roman numeral 4, because that was one of the options, but there's really only type 1, type 2, and type 3. So the type 4 is a made up thing that you don't need to worry about. So if you saw that, the survivorship curves, you need to know the difference between the type 1, type 2, type 3. So let's say just type 1 is where individuals have a high survival rate until old age. And you're not going to have to look at the shape of the curve and identify it. You're going to need to know these descriptions of it. So you need to know this small little bullet point here of what type 1 is. So for example, type 2 that is defined as the possibility of death is equally likely at any age. So it could be young, it could be old, doesn't matter. You're equally likely to die. And then, of course, finally, type 3, death is likely among the young, with few individuals reaching old age. So, for example, that would be like the poor little sea turtles that are trying to make it. Ah, that was an example you were going to say.
Listen, I like turtles. Let's just talk about my wall here for a minute that you guys can't see. Like, using poor
No.
baby sea
I
turtles.
literally just was watching that yesterday on the Smithsonian Channel or Discovery Channel or whatever it was. It was
I
talking
actually
about
worked at the
little-
aquarium just so I can hang out with turtles.
they're so cute, and the little birds were attacking them and eating them, and I was traumatized.
I'd be hitting some birds with a baseball bat. That's all I gotta say.
I can't. My Shannon, your house is on fire. Let me see. I can't see the picture. I can't. My poor boyfriend. He gets so frustrated because he'll be trying to watch something on the Discovery Channel or Smithsonian Channel or something, and I'm like, somebody's about to die. You need to change it. Like, I can't watch it. He's like, it's survival of the fittest. It's natural. I'm like, I don't care. I can't watch it. I'll start crying, and then he has to deal with me crying. It's
I would just be like, I'm naturally too invested for that. Okay. There you go.
So yeah. Okay. So that's our section on the chapter 30. I don't want to waste too much time because we're going to keep moving on here. But okay, so that's chapter 30. Really, that's it that you need to know from chapter 30. Which honestly, I'm not really even sure why it's in our curriculum, but whatever, doesn't matter. It is what it is. It is there, and that's what you need to know about it. So let's go to the animals one, because I feel like we kind of rushed through the animals chapter last week. So that's why I want to just spend a little bit more time on here. Where'd my Word doc go? Okay, so yeah, and this is why I have so many that are added on here. So let's see. This is kind of complicated the way the questions are on the animal section. And this is why I added them in here with the highlighted after I went back through it. And I was kind of like, these are kind of complicated on here, but so for example, I have this. Now the structures developed in animals in the order of the timeline through evolution. And so I went back and I was like, that's kind of vague, telling you what you need to know. So what I did was actually put add from 19.4, which is the slide number. And I don't have that on there, but I'm trying to get this. Oh my goodness gracious. My computer is not playing nice. Okay. So 19.4, I don't know where it is. We'll find it here somewhere. This is 19.9. Oh, here it is. Okay, this one. The animal evolutionary tree. This diagram is actually the best place to find some of this information. So one of the things you need to know, and I think this was actually from the last chapter 16, the last evolutionary chapter. I can't remember for sure, but this is a phylogenetic tree where these little green lines are that are saying this was our common ancestor, and then these evolved off to become sponges, which are pyrozoa. And then from that also evolved these cnidarians, which are called radiata. They have radial symmetry. And then the other group that branched off from that was the ancestor to all of these different ones that branched off from that. So I have on here, you need to know examples of protostomes versus deuterostomes. So protostomes are going to be all of these here. Can y'all see that pink line? So that includes flatworms, mollusks, annelids, nematodes, and arthropods. I almost don't want you to spend too much time memorizing these because it's not that many questions, but you really need to know it that specific for the few questions that are on there. So that's kind of up to you as far as how much time and how much you want to memorize that. And I'm inclined to say that you can use a piece of scratch paper. You can't use notes, but you can use a piece of scratch paper if you're trying to, like, you know, write down from memory what you remembered in order to help you answer the question. I don't have a problem with that. You can't use your actual notes printed out, but you can have a blank scratch sheet of paper and you can write what you remembered on there. So say, for example, you have some mnemonic or some sentence that you use that has the names in it so that you can remember. Protostomes include flatworms, mollusks, annelid, nematodes, and arthropods. Does anybody have any questions about that? Because I know that's kind of confusing the way I said all that, but where's my, I don't have my camera, so I can't see anybody's heads.
It makes sense.
Okay. Deuterostomes include the iconoderms and the chordates, which of course includes us eventually. So there's this evolutionary tree, and then there's also the 19.27, the chordate evolutionary tree, which basically takes it from here and then continues on to the lineage from chordate to newer, which would be eventually us. So I think I've got too many boxes on my screen. See here. I think it's around slide 22. Okay, this is how much time I spent going back and forth through this today to try to find this. Okay. Actually, let's just do this. I'm almost positive it's down here. Chordates, yeah, it's right after this. So page 28, both of these slides here, because it's in order on this bulleted one, but you need to know the order of these advancements. So I'll kind of just give you a hint. There's going to be a question that says places in the order from the most ancient or the earliest evolutionary structures to the most recent. So depending on how you memorize things better, these bullets are in order from earliest to the latest, the most recent, but it's also that way in this evolutionary tree, kind of similar to that one that we just looked at for the animals in general. So, and this one, you need to know these structures. So for example, vertebrae was one of the first developments. After that, then species came off that didn't have jaws, but then some developed jaws. Then this developed into different species, cartilaginous fish, but then some of them actually developed a skeleton made of bone. And then after that, some of those just had gills, but then some of them evolved lungs to allow them to more efficiently get oxygen from the air. And then after that, the lobe-finned fish stayed in the water, and then animals developed limbs, which included the amphibians. So if any of you have ever caught tadpoles when you were little, you might know this, but amphibians, the beginning of their life cycle is swimming like fish, and then they actually have limbs that form that allow them to go to the land. So that was the next development in their evolutionary tree. And then reptiles started to develop an amniotic egg, which is an egg that's enclosed in a shell that has food for the infant in it. So that egg, that hard-shelled egg, allowed for reptiles to better be able to live on land, which was the next step in the evolutionary tree, evolutionary structures. And then finally, mammals developed mammary glands where they could feed milk to their young. And then eventually after that, we came around. So again, you need to know the order of these evolutionary steps. There's one for that, like that for plants also. So yeah, it's one question, but there's a lot of things that you have to know to answer that one question. Any questions, comments about that? All right, so for these other ones that I added here, no examples of protostomes versus deuterostomes. For these, you actually need to go to these slides and see the more specific examples that are listed on there. So for example, that's slide 19, not page 19. This is, okay, yeah. It's 15, 16. Oh, 19-11. I meant figure 19-11. Gosh darn it. See, I'm not being consistent in the way that I'm applying it. 19-11 would be figure 19-11, I think. Maybe it is 19-1. Oh my goodness gracious. I'm losing my mind, guys. I'm so sorry. This is what happens when I rush through stuff. I'm inconsistent with the way that I write it. Because some of the slides have 19, the chapter dash, the number, and then some of them don't, and it's messing me up. Okay, this one is actually slide 19-11. So here you have listed here, you need to memorize which ones are protostomes. That includes flatworms, roundworms, mollusks, and annelids and arthropods. And then our deuterostomes are going to be iconoderms and chordates. So the chordates is that whole other section that was on that whole other phylogenetic tree that I mentioned. For our test purposes, you don't really even need to know the difference between protostomes and deuterostomes as far as what they are. You need to know these examples. And then there was a more specific question about annelids, and I couldn't find it in the PowerPoint, and so I went ahead and just added this on here in the version that I gave you. It's page 351 in your book. There's more detailed information that you need to know about annelids for that one question, which I kind of found annoying since it's not actually in the PowerPoint, but I'm giving you your hint. So there's your hint that I'm giving you. Page 351 in your textbook. Look up more information about the annelid. all of this that I just gave you on all of these covers this whole section of terms and all of this stuff that I said you need to know up here. Because we just went over slide 19-55. That was that other phylogenetic tree for the chordates. Oops. I meant to clear my drawings, and I did. Okay, animals, get off our screen.